The following podcast may contain material not suitable for children. Listener discretion is advised.
We are all painfully aware of what's happening in politics at the federal level. You know what's going on in your city, and to know how it works, you probably at least watch Parks and Rec. You see firsthand what's happening in the community, and you're up on all the latest gossip in your neighborhood. But how in tune are you with the inner workings of the state government? Whether you're in a red state, a blue state, or a purple one, much of what takes place in the statehouse probably isn't on your radar. You probably know most of the bills that get passed, and what laws are enacted or what issues were debated. But what's happening behind the scenes? Who's pulling the strings? Does your vote carry its proper weight? And are your interests being represented? I think we all need a civics lesson, or at least a refresh. Like the cartoon Bill singing on the steps of Capitol Hill, we're all in dire need of some statehouse rock.
Trigger warning, ready yourself, 'cause now we're going there. Taboo topics are back on the table.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Season 3 episode of the Going There podcast. Let's just jump right into it. We have gracing the studio for the third season in a row, a return guest, one of my favorite people. Go ahead and reintroduce our audience to who you are.
Oh, well, thank you for that very kind introduction. Casey Weinstein. I was in previous visits the state representative for this area, now the state senator for the 28th Senate District. I live in Hudson and represent kind of the Akron and Northeast Summit County area.
We should do a fake clip where you look in the camera and say, thanks to the Going There audience, I got elected to a new seat. I'm kidding.
Can we prove it wasn't because of the...
No, we can't.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And Casey brought with him a brand new face and name, a rising star in the Ohio House. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks for having me. I'm Dani Issacsohn, state representative from Cincinnati, District 24. And as of this summer, I serve as the minority leader for the Democrats in the Ohio House.
Are you a Cincy sports guy through and through?
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. If the Bengals aren't playing, do you root for the Browns?
Yeah, depends who they're playing against, probably. But yeah, I would
Casey, were you about to change allegiances?
I was just curious. Curious how he was going to answer that.
When the Browns aren't playing, I root for any Lake Erie loser. So that's the Bills and the Lions. And I root for the Bengals if we're not playing them.
Yeah, I mean, I like to root for the underdog.
Well, and the Browns and the Bengals are through and through.
That's good. I'm a Joe Burrow fan, so
yeah, me too.
I mean, he had his time with the Buckeyes, so
right.
The Browns finished strong. We'll say that. Finished on a positive note.
The way the season went, there was nothing we could have asked for that was a better way to just end it. But it's over, so thank God. Let me start with this. I feel like I owe your wife, Amanda, an apology. She would not think that I do. You're not going to think that I do. But there's this weird existential guilt in me. And it's funny that it's so placed on this specific moment. But
you voted for her opponent.
I don't live in the city of Hudson, so I did not. No, I'm a huge Amanda fan. I like Amanda as much as I like Casey, and that says a lot because they're both amazing people. So I was kindly. By the way, I get a Christmas card and a New Year's card and all kinds of stuff from them. They're thoughtful.
Oh,
it's hanging on my fridge right now.
Oh, that's nice.
So I show up at their house because they're hosting an election watch party, and I showed up in such high spirits. I felt so hopeful about the election, as many people did. I had all of my eggs in this one basket. I was like, I think we're finally turning the corner. Okay, so I show up there. I see Casey. Casey, as always, gives me a hug. We chat a little bit. I can tell he's exhausted. This has been the most tiring campaign season for you, where you were running for your new seat that you're now in the Ohio Senate. And then I see Amanda, And she is putting on a brave face. She's smiling. And I'm like, how you feeling? And she's like, I'm worried. I'm scared. And I spent 10 minutes trying to convince her that like there was nothing to be scared of.
No.
And the way that election ended, I know that she probably doesn't remember me being there, but there's so much shame I have over that because she was right, damn it. I underestimated how much our country is still opposed to a female person of color running the country. I underestimated that. And I think a lot of people did. That was one of the most depressing mornings the next morning. And I texted you, congratulations. But I kept going, damn it. Next time I see Amanda, I need to apologize for trying to give her false hope.
Oh, you don't. I mean, we need all the optimism and positivity we can get. But yeah, that sucked for sure for the country. And it's one of those my election. I'm glad it went my way, but obviously massively dwarfed by the impact of what happened for the country.
Yeah.
So,
It's a bittersweet celebration, I'm sure.
mostly bitter, mostly bitter.
One of the few things that came out of that was hopeful was you won. And that wasn't a small thing. That was a big deal. So I think, today I want to talk about what's happening on the state level, but a lot of what we're going to discuss goes above and beyond Ohio too. So those of you out there listening or watching from a different state, even different country, these things, there is a playbook and plan that is happening from, I'm going to say, the Sith Lords and the dark side all the time. And there's a resistance that's going on. And so a lot of these fights you guys are having at the State House are happening across the board, right? But why did you move from the Ohio House to the Senate? Why was that important?
Well, in politics, there's the pragmatic reason when there's an open kind of pathway to do it. You got to, if you want to go and you want to continue serving and you want to try to continue it to have a bigger impact, you got to go, right? Those opportunities can happen in leadership in the House. They can happen to take a next step in the Senate, or if you end up going for federal or higher office. When those pathways open, they're relatively few and far between. So if you want to keep serving and you want to keep growing in that way, you just got to go. But secondly, I do think that over my 3 terms in the House, I learned a lot. I learned about how to navigate the process and build the right relationships to get priorities done. And especially this last General Assembly, we had a really productive and positive and bipartisan GA where we actually got some really good things done for the district. So I felt like I was ready to take a little step up to the Senate.
Do you find it tougher at all that now you're in the even smaller minority? Because in the House, it wasn't that big of a ratio, right?
I definitely miss the camaraderie of the bigger crew. Like there's a big difference from 35 down to
just 9. Tell them the truth.
Well,
You had a good floor mate.
I had a great floor mate. I sat next to Dani for a year and a half. For a couple years. Was able to give him hell. And I miss that. I sit next to Jane Timken now, so I can't. It's like, and we've become pretty friendly, and we're doing a bill together. So, but it's no one's going to beat.
We're alma maters in the same high school.
You and Jane?
Senator Timken.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I didn't know that.
She's a Walnut Hills grad.
Okay. All right. Well, she's a nice person, a good person, and she's been open to working on something. So we're doing a postpartum depression screening and care bill together. So it's good.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyways, lessons learned over 3 terms. I felt like I was ready to take the step.
So you're in the House, and you're now the House Minority Leader. And what's the difference between the impact on the state level that the Senate makes and that the House makes?
I mean, the roles are very similar, right? Like we're no bill can get through without passing both chambers, and plenty of the bills originate in the Senate and come over to the House, and vice versa. So I think that the bigger difference is just the culture of the two houses, and obviously Senator Weinstein over here can speak to both, having served in both. But because there are more members of the House, it's more of the it's more democratic. Right? There's more people, there's more engagement, there's more back and forth, there's more.
Really?
There's
I would
more,
think it would be the other way around, where like a small group of people, we can all learn how to get together, and the bigger groups get, the more like cliques and.
Well, that's sort of what I mean by democracy. It's like messier, right?
Oh.
Democracy is messy. Our society is messy. There's people with big personalities, and that all comes out in the 99 members of the Ohio House. Whereas the Senate is a little more, reserved and
It's quieter.
and
It is.
genteel.
Refined.
Yeah. And so, I mean, can't you tell?
I'm sorry, I didn't dress
The
very
last
nice.
time Casey was here, he was dressed like you. Look at what the Senate has done to this man.
I did trim
kidding.
and shave my beard for you.
I actually
Today?
am so happy because anytime Casey has held an event, I'm always underdressed. So when I showed up at the election watch party, I was the only one overdressed. I was dressed like you, and everyone's wearing just Casey t-shirts and jeans. And I'm like, this guy and I are never going to sync up. We're close today,
you're
but
pretty
casual.
You're
I look like
accessible.
shit. That's what you want to say?
You got a collar. He's in this is a politician's uniform.
Yeah.
Blue shirt, rolled up sleeves.
Oh yeah,
This is our uniform.
I like it.
Right.
I like
He's
it.
always on parade. He's got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
To the best of your knowledge, do the general assemblies in the other states work pretty similarly to how they do in Ohio? Because I'm sure you talk to people in sister states and things like that.
Every state that the basic structure, except for Nebraska, I think they're unicameral in Nebraska. That would be so they only have one. There's no Senate and House. There's just one like House chamber. I
They
guess
call it like husk,
Yeah.
corn cob. There's
With that,
shout out to Nebraskans. Sorry.
there you go. It's Big Ten country. Yes. I think so. We are, of course, the political dynamics are different in every state.
Yeah.
We are in not just the minority here. We are in the super minority,
Yeah.
and what we mean by that is we don't have enough votes to sustain a veto should the governor veto something. And we actually happen to have a fairly, for a Republican, a pretty pragmatic governor who does tend to weigh in on certain extremist bills and veto them. And we don't have enough Democrats to help sustain that veto. So the Republicans, because they have a supermajority, can override vetoes, which really diminishes the power of the executive branch.
I said this to Dr. Acton on, a few episodes ago. For every time Mike DeWine does something that I'm like, okay, he's pragmatic. He turns around and does something else that's just, I don't need either of you to speak to him. I'm so happy he's leaving because he did stand up for Ohioans lots of times, and he also failed Ohioans because he was towing the party line so many times. And the fact that he just endorsed Vivek Ramaswamy against his own appointed health director is a big bummer. That is politics 101. He is just playing like he's a lame duck. He doesn't have to do anything. Why didn't he just anyway? Sorry.
He's a party guy, and he said that publicly.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a Republican. That's what he says. And so he's not gonna buck his party in that significant of a way.
Okay, so that pisses me off. But what I'll say is what I love about you, and I'm assuming you are similar, equally lovable, is you're an Ohioan first. I don't think of you as a Democrat or a liberal. I think of you as an Ohioan. You care about the people in your district. And just by short conversation with you and watching some of the stuff that you've posted online, you're the same way. I mean, that's what we need is servant leaders. And Casey, I've always seen you as that. We're going to talk through some of why I believe that.
Yeah. Well, if I can add one thing to brag on
brag
Dani
for
a
him?
little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah. Being in the super minority makes it extraordinarily hard to get anything done. But he's been really, really, if he's in a very tough role being the leader, which is a significant role, but in the super minority, you just don't have a lot of levers to pull. And I've never been in leadership, but I know that the pathways are narrow and few, and to get our priorities done, and we're on defense a lot. So when we get wins, or we reduce harm, it's a big deal and it takes a lot of work. And he does a very, very good job of that.
How do you guys do it emotionally? I've told you this before because I'm equally as passionate as you guys are about many of the same issues and my own different issues in the world. But going to bat and getting struck out so many times because of the politics, how do you get back up and keep going?
Well, so I think it's a question I'm sure both of us, every Democrat in Ohio and a lot of other states get a lot, some version of that. And a lot of people think, and I get why they think this, they think Democrats in the Ohio legislature go to work, they yell, they scream, they shout, they huff, they puff.
And they go home and they don't
they
care.
get steamrolled, they vote no, they go home. Right? That's what a lot of people think is sort of the role of a super minority legislator.
Yeah.
I am happy to report that most days, most of the time, that is not the case. Right? On the big issues that make the headlines, national political issues, culture war issues, that is what happens. And those are the worst days. But, the state is dealing with really complicated issues as it relates to energy policy and housing policy and healthcare policy and education policy and childcare policy and infrastructure. And on each of those, there's tons of levers to pull that are not obviously partisan, right? Allowing a new development to do their own, it's called behind the meter generation of energy on the project site. Republican idea, what's the answer? Making sure that kids have, more after school programming, including sports and football and baseball. Democrat idea, Republican, not that clear, but would make a huge difference on the youth mental health issue. Right. And so on a ton of these, if you're willing to get creative and thoughtful and really dig down on what is actually happening in people's lives, you can find not only sort of nonpartisan answers, but ultimately bipartisan policies. And so that's
which is how it's supposed to work.
Totally. And
I'm happy to know that it happens more often than we see. I'm so happy you just shared that.
It's a choice that you're, as an elected official, you kind of have to make. And so the answer to your question, I think, in part, is you have to choose to want to do the extra work from the superminority to be able to get stuff done, because it takes longer. You got to build more relationships and deeper trust because you're not just in the majority getting to put bills forward. But the other piece is, right, in terms of like, how do you get up every day and how do you do it when on the issues you care the most about or want to do the most on, you are blocked? It's like, look, there's one of us, in my district, there's 115,000 people. In Casey's, there's 3 times that, but we're working in a state with 12 million people. So like pretty fundamentally, when you do the math, we as individuals don't matter in that equation. Right? And so if you're able to go to work and help 15,000 people that day or that week or that month, you should be able to get up and go the next day, and so even if you've had a bad day. And the second any elected official gets jaded or cynical, it's time for them to move on. And the voters need to move them along. And voters deserve elected officials who are optimistic and happy to be there and grateful to be there. And when that changes, which it does a lot of the time, it's time to move on.
Don't look at our federal Congress, okay? There's so many jaded, outaged, angry people.
How dare they be like, they represent in the federal government
800,000 people.
800,000 people's interests.
Not just interests, well-being, quality of life.
Yeah.
Like
so get over yourself.
Quality of life.
And the wholesale abdication of their power. I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but like to give up not just your individual power for your constituents, but your collective power as a branch of government, and to be subservient to the executive branch. I can't believe that.
We're living in scary times, but I think probably what gets you out of bed is the same thing that gets people like me out of bed and others, is you find the little hope. Because the little hopes don't make the news. They don't go viral. It's people like yourself who give a damn even when it's hard. They stand on what they say they are going to do and their values and their integrity, and not take the easy way out or take a bribe from First Energy or something like that.
And this is, I think, the story you were referencing.
Yeah.
That I like.
Kids' meals.
Yeah.
Yes. I love this story.
It's a story I tell for a bunch of different reasons, but it helps illustrate the point here.
Okay.
So a few years ago, we had a budget surplus in Ohio. A lot of states did because of federal funding.
Okay,
So
did
we
you
had
go
eight-
with the chairs or the copier? Sorry, that's an office reference. Okay.
Oh, no.
But anyway, we had an $8 billion surplus, way too, like a ton of money in a budget that was approaching $100 billion. And it would have cost $200 million to get free breakfast and lunch for every kid in Ohio. And that felt to us like a no-brainer.
Right.
And by the way, most of these kids live in rural areas, especially Appalachia, because in the urban core, the schools were already so concentrated with poverty that they had 100% free and reduced already. But a hungry kid's a hungry kid, and we were fighting for them no matter what.
And we still live under this assumption that most people care about children and their well-being, right?
Mhm.
Especially they're just literally
Constituent.
like being hungry at school,
Right.
Yeah.
where we're hoping they learn. And so we thought, we've got the money, let's do it. We took it to the majority. They thought about it. They said no. So the
I
temptation,
remember when this happened.
the temptation in that moment, right, especially for elected officials and politicians, go straight to social media, put them on blast, right? Let the world know that they just said no to feeding kids in their district. Instead, we sort of took a deep breath. We said, our goal, like, keep our eye on the prize here, hungry kids. We went back to them with a counter proposal. We said, how about just breakfast? $26 million. Nothing in a budget that size, right? And so they thought about it and they said, you know what, we're going to use the money for an earmark instead. So obviously the temptation then is exponentially greater to sort of call out this insanity. Deep breath, went back to the table, said, how about this? There's 70,000 kids on reduced price, right? So they're paying $1 or $2 for their meals. And even for them, it's a burden, and a lot of them are going hungry. Let's collapse reduced into free. Just say everyone who's currently paying the $1 or $2, let's make it free. $4 million a year, a rounding error. So they said $4 million a year, sure. And by the way, we're going to take credit for it. And which they did. So that when I am going out and talking to potential candidates or people who think about public service, the thing I say to them in telling that story is, find me a job where when you lose a fight, you feed 70,000 hungry kids a day. And if we are disciplined about the work, if we are focused on trying to get stuff done, which is hard to do, then those opportunities exist. And if at any point we had just blown it up and chosen to get clicks or build our own profile or whatever, we would have missed the opportunity to come back to the table and get that done. And it's not to say we shouldn't ever call out the majority for the stuff they're doing.
No.
Of course we should.
But anymore, a lot of that becomes noise too, and wallpaper.
And we should do it when it's
Unfortunately-
not coming at the cost of getting real stuff done that can help
Right.
people. And so the choice a lot of times that Democrats have in Ohio, at least in places where we're in the minority, is, you can do things that help you feel good about yourself, or you can do things that do good for other people. And there's often not an overlap on those two things. And that's, I think, a choice that voters should, think about when electing, sending people to office.
Just reminds me of one of my favorite shows, Parks and Rec. And you just watch that the whole time. You're like, poor Leslie. My good God, man.
But you talk about eternally optimistic, right? And somebody who's just, right, not in it. I actually love her character.
Yeah.
I love every character on that
Well,
show.
didn't you guys dress up as,
Yeah, we
as
did.
Leslie and
Yeah.
Ron this
I was
last
Ron,
year?
she
I
was
remember that.
Leslie. Yep.
Yeah. I think it's beautiful. I think whatever meditations you guys are doing, you need to share with the public, because I don't know if I can find that level of Zen.
Oh,
But-
it's just YouTube rabbit holes.
Okay.
It's just when I need to zone out and get the kids to bed after they're asleep, I'll just, you got to find that zone out moment.
Let's dig into some of the nitty gritty. So for the 26 and 27 fiscal year budgets, House Bill 96 signed by DeWine in 25, around $100 billion.
That's total.
I think it's
Yeah,
around
over
$100 billion
over
for
the
the 2 years.
biennium.
Yeah. Sorry, for
Yeah.
both years total.
Right. Runs from July to June.
The focus is on obviously education. There's a lot of talk right now about charters and the vouchers and all the things going on there. Childcare, workforce development, public safety, and then obviously infrastructure and tax relief. So what are you guys dealing with right now as far as budget and what you are hoping to do with it? And what was the process getting there? Was there a lot of this, like the free lunches kind of thing, moving that way?
Well, unfortunately, we just went through the first partisan budget process, I think in 25 years. I'm pretty sure this is the first time there has been no minority party support for a budget since like 2001, something like that. So very disappointing process, because in my 3 terms in the House, including last General Assembly with Dani, Leader Issacsohn, I should also say, I voted for every budget. I voted for every operating budget. I voted for every transportation budget and every capital budget. So there's 3 main ones that we do, but the biggest one is the operating budget. And what happened this time is we did a flat tax. But the effect of the flat tax was that the highest bracket, the wealthiest Ohioans, which were at 3.7%, something like that, lowered them down to 2.75.
Who is pushing for this?
No one asked me for this. I live in a fairly higher income.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in that bracket in my district and in my town. Literally nobody asked me for a 1% state income tax cut. But the practical effect is, I think, $1.8 billion of less
I
revenue.
mean, it's close to double digits over the last 10 years on tax cuts for the highest earners.
Right.
So, but how are they selling you this on the floor?
They're not.
Well, they're not.
So they don't even pretend to have a reason that's...
It's trickle-down economics.
Right.
Those have been proven time and time again to work.
But the amazing thing is, they'll say that the tax cut will result in an explosion of growth and revenue, but we're losing population outright in Ohio.
Yeah.
We're falling behind neighboring states. And the Legislative Service Commission, which is like our CBO that scores these things, told us it would result in $1.8 billion of projected less revenue. So they use that as justification. Well, sorry, guys, we got less revenue coming in. We're cutting schools. We're abandoning the Fair School Funding Plan, which was a bipartisan agreement that we had come up with to increase state share for public schools. We eliminated the public library fund and had an effective $90 million cut for our libraries. We halved the H2 Ohio program, which this district benefits from. We're in the Lake Erie watershed right here where we're recording. That was a Governor DeWine-led initiative to provide clean water for people. So there's some really fundamental, important programs that were cut because of the justification of less revenue, but it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. So it's total BS when they are out there trying to sell it as an economic growth engine. It's just giving money back to their donors. So we couldn't find money for any of those important and critical things, but we found a way to get $600 million for the Haslams for their stadium that nobody was asking for public subsidies for either. So very
Don't hold
frustrating.
that against the Browns. We're still good people. We're a good fan
Well, the
base.
Bengals got in there too. So they turned it into a stadium fund. In fact, I was meeting with Senator Serino when the Bengals were reaching out to him actively, wanting to get in on that money. So
Hey, we heard you guys are giving away free money. How can we get in on this?
Well, they understand how it works, right?
Yeah.
They made $2.5 million. There's a Cleveland.com article about this, $2.5 million of contributions to the leaders in the legislature. And then the next year they came and got their return. It's just very, very disappointing. It's all about priorities. And we chose to cut the really critical investments that our communities need in favor of giveaways to the wealthiest Ohioans. Other than that, it was a great budget.
I mean, one of the things that, we've been speaking about Governor DeWine, I'll give him some credit on the budget before this one. He worked really hard, and we partnered with him on it, to focus on literacy and changing the way we teach kids to read through the science of reading.
Yeah, our literacy rates in Ohio specifically have dropped drastically over the last couple of decades.
Yeah. Thank you, Governor Kasich and the Republicans in the legislature. But Governor DeWine was trying to turn around data-backed, evidence-backed work. It's not something, by the way, that only Democratic states have done. In fact, they're calling it the Mississippi Miracle, but there's states, Mississippi, Tennessee, and others in the South that have really shown the way in how you really leap in terms of literacy. And the way you do it is you change the curriculum, you focus on the science of reading, but it's not just that. It can't just be that. And so the DeWine administration in the last budget made sure that there were also literacy coaches. There's also additional funding to train teachers on the new model, and then to hold them accountable to it and to actually make sure that this is getting implemented and enforced. And then 2 years later, out of spite, truly out of spite, the majority cut the other two pillars of the stool. And so we saw literacy rates start to climb slowly over those 2 years. And now, we'll see what happens. But why would you abandon the strategy by the Republican governor, which has data and evidence that it's working in Republican states in the South?
You lost me at data and evidence.
Just, the idea that you would allow a policy to be governed by spite, that's going to make it so that it's harder for a generation of kids to read.
But how do these
Wonder
people...
where they get their cues from.
Yeah. How do they keep getting elected? Is it all just identity politics?
Oh,
well,
no.
And Jerry,
let me just tee this up because he's dealt with that this year. They design
I was
their own
wondering if that
districts.
was coming.
They design their own districts, right?
Yeah.
On the legislative side, we had we didn't redo our legislative districts this year, but in general, they are like the agents in the Matrix. They guard all the exits, they hold all the keys, right? And what I was saying earlier about Leader Isaacson and finding pathways to get things done, he was able to get basically a miracle done to get somewhere within a galaxy of representative congressional districts this time. But these are drawn by legislators to insulate themselves from the public will, right? You got to remember that.
Absolutely. Like gerrymandering in Ohio, they're talking about it in Florida. They were talking about it in Texas. There was the big thing with California.
They're doing it in Florida now.
One, it shouldn't be legal, but it really isn't, because wasn't it getting knocked down by the courts, the higher courts? Weren't they saying this is...
Used to get knocked down.
In our Supreme Court, we used to have a bipartisan majority that upheld the constitutional amendments that were passed that mandated fair districts. But since then, they've moved to partisan. Did they move the Supreme Court to partisan, or were they always partisan?
No, that's new.
Yeah, so they moved the Supreme Court to partisan races. So judges are now running explicitly as Democrats or Republicans because they were losing.
That is so now, ridiculous.
Yeah.
One of the most important reforms we have to do is get partisanship out of the state Supreme Court races.
It's so daunting what you guys have to do. And I know you don't have to fix it all. But you guys...
We'd like to.
But you guys are making progress, which is beautiful, but it's so daunting, the problems with Ohio. So let's start with one of our problems, because gerrymandering, we could do a 7-part series on and not even touch the tip of the iceberg. Property taxes. That's one of the issues that I know you're passionate about, and I'm assuming you're working on. What's going on with that right now in the state?
I can just briefly talk at a high level. When you're talking about the stools, right? The 3 legs of the stools, we have essentially 3, right? Property taxes, income taxes, sales taxes. Our fundamental problem that we've had for decades in the state is that the state does not provide enough revenue for local governments, for schools, for all of those critical entities in our communities. They cut the local government fund. They cut the estate fund. When I was on city council in Hudson, that was a $3 million hit to our $20 million budget. So they have been defunding essentially Ohio and have done nothing to help on the property tax or sales tax side. So when you have less funding coming in from the income tax, local municipalities have a tax burden shifted on them. So that's why you've seen a disproportionate amount of growth in the property tax side, which is causing real pain for people, especially people on fixed incomes, especially there's a lot of people struggling because of this. So that is the fundamental challenge we face, is that we have cut our responsibility at the state level and done nothing to help make up that gap for our local governments.
For a long time, too, Ohio was seen as the place to go for lower cost of living. It's still lower than a lot of states, but it's actually the average property tax in Ohio is higher than the U.S. average state. So what can actually be done? Like, how much power does the General Assembly, especially one that's very partisan, have with doing something about that?
A ton.
Your optimism is amazing. I want to freebase this.
He's had bipartisan bills on this.
It is not that complicated. I mean, we can start from the premise that property taxes are too high in Ohio, right?
What was that guy, Dave? What was your dude's name? The rent is too damn high.
The rent is too damn high, and so are the property taxes. The notion that our offices, and this is certainly true down in Cincinnati, but it's true all over the state, have been flooded over the last few years with calls from seniors worried about getting taxed out of their homes. They've lived there for 50 years. They've paid it off, and they might be forced to leave their house because
their taxes are higher than their mortgage ever was. Right.
And so that is outrageous.
Yeah.
And so it's a sign of a problem. The question is, what do we do about it, and why is it happening? And, Casey talked about this. It's happening largely because we are squeezing local communities, and the state, by refusing to fund public education in particular, is basically saying to every local community in Ohio, you have two options. You can jack up your property taxes way high if you want decent schools, or you can have not very good schools because the state's not going to pay for it anymore. And to me, it's a total, the past 20 years, Ohio has gotten off the track of what makes us who we are.
Yeah.
This is not some go it alone, teach your kids at home, don't have a good community neighborhood school state. Right? This is a state where people are used to having an affordable quality of life, where in Ohio, you move here, you can buy a house, you can live in a safe neighborhood, you can send your kids to a really good, free public school. That's sort of you can grow old here, you can downsize when you need to, you can have your grandkids over, right? It's not that complicated.
And look, I have no kids, but I have always voted to pass levies, especially when they were no-brainers, because the school district that you live in, the better that school's doing, the better you're doing.
Ohioans have the most levies of any state in the country. We are over-levied. Why? Because local communities are given this choice.
Yeah.
And so it should be about a 50-50 split statewide between the state government and the local communities in funding public education. But over the last 20 years, it's gone to a 70-30 split. So if 70% of public education is falling on the backs of local property owners, they're going to get squeezed, and it's going to go up. And so the long-term fix is for us to change the way we fund our public schools and for the state to provide more of that funding. In the short term, we got to give people relief. It should be targeted relief to the people who need it the most. There's bills that, Casey referenced that could, that I've introduced and others have introduced that are bipartisan to make it so that seniors have their property taxes frozen at age 65. There's bills that are called circuit breakers, which function exactly like the name, like a circuit breaker. So if your property tax bill is more than 5% of your income, you get up to $1,000 in credit, right? That's what over 30 states have a version of a circuit breaker. So there's ways to get people cash in their pockets now as relief, but the long-term fix is to change the way we fund our public schools.
And we had a bipartisan plan that, had we stuck to it,
was that one of the stool legs?
Well, it's part of this. Yeah, it's the state share.
It's at the table
for public education, right? There's libraries, there's all kinds of critical local services that are funded through state funds. But in this case, the biggest one is public education. And we had a bipartisan plan, the Cupp-Patterson framework, and the Speaker of the House, Cupp, worked on it with one of our great members, John Patterson, and we passed it and we got it done, but we abandoned it, this General Assembly. Like we did not keep up with the inputs. So it created an effective cut for our schools because of that. So there's that gap, right?
But people have no idea what's happening locally. They might know what's happening in their community, but they don't know who is doing what at the state level. I don't think the average voter actually understands what's happening and why, because they show up and they vote the party line, they go home. Am I supposed to vote yes or no on this issue?
In state races, at least, they just don't show up.
Or they don't show up. I feel like these things are they're at least equally as important as the federal votes, if not even more important, because these are the people who have the closest hand on your well-being and quality of life. And it's just scary. And so we're talking about home ownership. Yeah, property taxes are high, but the cost of housing is going up and up. How old were you when you bought your first house, Casey?
22.
Yeah,
22.
I was in my mid-20s. I don't know if you're a homeowner or not. I'm assuming.
I rent the apartment I live in.
Yeah, me too now. So don't worry about it. No, but my point is, the average 20-something.
It's shocking.
The average 20-something is the smallest percentage of 20-somethings since the Greatest Generation to be homeowners. They're not buying houses. They can't afford it.
I read recently the average age of first home ownership has risen from mid-20s to like 43.
Yep.
It shocked me, and it has happened in a relatively within a generation.
Yeah.
Or two at the most, right? From an geriatric
From your
millennial.
generation to my
Yeah.
generation.
Hey, I own a home. You don't. All right, whippersnapper.
Ouch.
You young whippersnapper.
Give
No,
me your youth. You can
he
have
is.
my
He's-
home.
He's young. He's what's next. He's.
We need that.
But anyways,
We're basically the same age, but
no. I'm pretty old, man. I'm pretty freaking old.
I'm
But
older than you by
you are. I'm not that
by
old.
like 9 months.
You tried to claim I was halfway through my life.
oh,
You'll live forever.
Thank
That
you.
optimism, you'll live forever.
Right.
I'll be jaded and tired and just be like, I can't do it anymore. Lord, take me home.
Ugh.
That's gonna be me in about 10 years.
Man, oh man. But yeah, like there are massive structural barriers.
Yeah.
We have a problem in that a lot of young people don't want to live in Ohio and are choosing to go.
That's one of our
elsewhere.
biggest exports is young people.
Right. And the growth that we are experiencing, which Columbus, that area is growing. I think Cincinnati is stable to it's growing a little bit. We're at best stable, but really probably losing population in Northeast Ohio. Our migration is interstate. And so when places are growing, it's at the expense of zero-sum situation. And our outright population is decreasing for the first time, I think, in Ohio history right now. So there's the structural and economic challenges, and then there's the signals that we send to young people. When we do regressive policy, or we're fighting, like Dani was talking earlier, we're fighting the cultural war of the moment, and we're sending a signal to people like what the state is all about. And in large numbers, large enough to where we're shrinking, they're choosing to go live elsewhere.
the thing. If you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah.
And it's a little like a party, right? Like if
This party's so over.
you're not gonna if you hear like, oh, actually, you call your friend, you're like, should I come? And they're like, well, kind of people are starting to trickle out. You're
Man,
probably not
if-
going to show up.
Dude, if you would have shown up in like 08, 09, this would have been a great party, but
Swap it
just
up.
go home, man.
And so, you call your friend in North Carolina
Yeah.
and they're going to be like, it's bumping. Like
Yeah.
it's just picking up.
Yeah.
And there's Republican states that are growing and doing this well.
Yeah.
They have the benefit of sunshine and beaches usually. And there's Democratic states that are doing this well. And there's Democratic states that are struggling with this. So it's actually not necessarily a partisan thing. It's just bad leadership. And Ohio has had bad leadership for 2 decades. And there are some Democratic states that have also had bad leadership.
Sure,
So it's
sure.
not, one party doesn't own that. But in Ohio, it's been Republican led for 2 decades. And we've seen, people have voted with their feet. And you can see the results, right? And so we used to have one of the best public school systems. Now we're in the bottom 20 out of 50 states, right? You get a shorter lifespan in Ohio than if you live in other states, right? What's more valuable than your time on earth, right? And so that's what we have to turn around. It's a quality of life question.
Yeah.
And, when my parents moved to the country and eventually moved to Ohio, this was the place to be. You moved here for the quality of life that Ohio could afford for you and your family.
Don't get me wrong. I still love Ohio. I still love Cleveland, but I'm honest about what it is and what could be way better.
Yeah.
This whole make America great again. It's like, first of all, what makes us great is we never stop trying to be great by being kinder to each other, by caring about more things.
Yeah.
But also, if you want to go back to the basics, let's go back to when we were civil and decent and we cared before the special interests really got their hands on what's happening left and right. And so why are Republicans going crazy over cannabis and hemp right now? What the hell is happening? The people spoke. Now, I'm playing devil's advocate because I know what's going on, but we voted. We said, no, we want this legal. Why are they trying to walk this back and draw? Why are we spending time on this when the house is on fire?
I think it came from a legitimate concern to some extent from the governor about safeguards
Sure.
when it comes to hemp, intoxicating hemp, marijuana. But while they were at it, they just decided to sweep away some significant portions of issue 2, which Ohio voters passed 57 plus to 43, right? Overwhelmingly.
Yes.
As far as public opinion goes, this was pretty emphatic. in terms of what Ohioans clearly told us they want. So, yeah, it's exceptionally frustrating when we have issues like we've had on the table tonight, and they choose to spend a lot of our time. They actually called us back for some of these things to focus on rolling back the marijuana pun, by the way. So many puns with marijuana. You have to acknowledge that.
The number is high.
Right. Again, it has to be said. They're in districts that insulate themselves from the public will. When issue 2 passed, their little bubbles burst and whoa, they got a little taste of it. And initially they were like, I think Huffman said, we're gonna overturn that. And then they stopped and realized how much this is something that Ohioans want. But they also have a significant portion of their base that has a reefer madness, real moral.
You mean all of the shit that's been debunked over the years?
Yeah, right. But I've talked to many of my Republican colleagues, and this is the basis of their opposition is a moral, religious.
Next time, ask them how
opposition.
many people have died from marijuana
But
use.
I don't think that's from their base.
I don't either.
That's the thing. I think it's the individuals in the legislature out of touch.
Yeah.
They're deeply out of touch with their constituents and others.
Yeah.
And because they're unaccountable because of gerrymandering, they feel like no one can touch them. And so they do whatever they want based on their own personal, moral, or, otherwise convictions.
It's true.
And that to me is where this came. It's bad policy. It's clearly against the will of the
And
voters.
every time we do prohibition in history, it's gone super well.
And so it's this is what happens when you get a bunch of people who are deeply out of touch with where most people are.
It's one thing when they don't want to fund something. Now they're trying to take away something that is actually, it's like taking away free lunch. It's mind-boggling with the issues that we have in the state and what we know is important. And that is the focus. To me, it seems like a red herring or a straw man, something to take your attention away from, by the way, we just gave these guys, $600 million.
What Ohioans clearly said was stay out of it.
Yeah.
Right. We'll decide if we want to drink alcohol. We'll decide if we want to smoke
And
marijuana.
they say the same with abortion, which was like, that was a huge.
Just stay out of it. Let us be
election.
free to make this. We're adults.
Yeah.
We should keep it out of the hands of kids. Whenever it it offends their sensibility, freedom has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Right. We can throw it out the window.
So freedom has a lot of different, like you have to fall into this category to get freedom.
And so that's the part that I think is so frustrating with that issue. It's a total disrespect for the freedom of adults in Ohio to make their own choices.
Ohio, when they just put it to a straight vote, Ohio's like, no, we want women to have healthcare and choices. No, we want people, even if you don't partake in marijuana, we want people to have the right to do that. We're not talking about heroin. We're not talking about drug cartels. We're talking about, taxed and monitored usage. So this kind of stuff really just bothers me. And this happens across the board when you have the wrong people who get into the seats, who care about, as you guys say, insulating, their reign of terror. All they're doing is hurting the state and the people in it. And then you have to talk to people who are being hurt by it, but they bought into the rhetoric on the other side, which says, no, they're doing great by me. Like, that's the person stabbing you. That wound you have in your side? They're actually the ones sticking the knife in. Thank God guys like you are there fighting for us. So what are the bills that you guys are working on right now that you're really passionate about?
I've got 8 bipartisan bills, soon to be a 9th, which I'm excited about. I mentioned the postpartum depression screening and care bill with Senator Timken. We had a coal bailout. I worked on a bill for 2 general assemblies to eliminate coal bailouts. Many others worked on that bill.
That's bipartisan?
It got rolled into a bigger effort, this General Assembly. It was
'Cause that's kinda
bipartisan in the
surprising
House,
to
and
me.
it was bipartisan in the Senate, passed overwhelmingly. So the bill, it was a component of a bigger, pretty good energy policy bill that passed into law that is saving people money because we eliminated those coal bailouts that were associated with the House Bill 6. I've got a puppy mill reform bill that
Thank God.
Yeah, we need to go away from 2-day warnings for inspections and move to no notice inspections. So that's something I can tell you. Just the outreach we've gotten from my office, Republicans and Democrats like their dogs and like
Kids and
puppies.
dogs, I thought, were the 2 things we all agreed on.
We can unite around that. I passed a hearing aids bill, hearing aids for kids, last General Assembly.
Yeah.
And because of that, a lot of groups reached out to me looking for new ideas and new frontiers we could go to. And so I'm stuck in the communication space, and I've got a bill to provide insurance coverage for augmented communication devices, people who communicate using technology who aren't verbal, usually on the autism spectrum. So those are some of the things that I've been working on that are getting some movement that I'm excited about. I've got a pediatric cancer research bill that's bipartisan. I've got a personal needs allowance bill that's bipartisan with Senator Kyle Kaler. Senator Tim Schafer's working with me on the other bill. Senator Blessing from your area. We have 2 bills together, cryptocurrency fraud and small solar, modular solar. So there's been a lot of opportunities to find those pathways, and those bills are actually moving through the hearing process. And as I mentioned, one of them has been passed. So I'm optimistic and thankful, and not yet at that jaded or cynical place where I don't think we can get things done.
It's a big deal. I want to hone in on this a little. It is a big deal that he has 8 to 9 bipartisan bills.
Yeah.
It is very hard to do that. It takes so much more work than just introducing, whatever bill you're most passionate about, because you got to do all the legwork to build the trust and the legitimacy and the relationships on the other side of the aisle. They're in the supermajority. They don't have to put their name on a bill with a Democrat, especially not one who's as vocal as Senator Weinstein. And so it takes a huge amount of work to be able to pull that off and to still have substantive bills that would do good in people's lives that are bipartisan. So I don't think we should. I don't want to skate over that. It's a big deal.
Thank you.
I'm so happy and proud that I'm the most jaded one at this table. and because you guys are on the front lines, and that's incredible. What about you? Are you working on anything this year or in this term that you're really passionate about?
So I, before becoming leader, spent a couple of years working on a bill to increase our housing supply. We talked about the cost of housing. A big part of that is that we're not building enough new units. So if we build more, right, as supply goes up, and demand stays the same, or even if demand increases at a slower pace, it will bring down both the cost of new housing to buy, and it will bring down rents and stabilize rents. And so got a $25 million bipartisan housing accelerator fund. It's a pilot fund in the budget that provides grant money to any local community around the state or municipality that passes legislation to make it easier to build more housing. So really excited about that. Mm-hmm. But now in my role as leader, I don't really introduce legislation anymore. Right. I don't sit on legislative committees, which is a bummer for me because I like legislating.
Yeah.
But so I'll shout out some of the things that the caucus is working on that I'm excited about. We've got members working on bipartisan bills to address dynamic or algorithmic pricing in the rental market. So it's a fancy way of saying that landlords are illegally colluding to set rents too high. So it's pretty fundamental.
The rent is too damn high, Dave.
Way too damn high.
We need a button.
It's a long-standing law in the United States that you cannot collude on prices. So if you all sell apples, all the apple sellers cannot say, guys, let's all start at $7. That way, no one has an option to go below that price, right? And so that's illegal. But because there's these algorithms that can set dynamic prices for rents and increasingly for things like airline tickets and others, the industry through something called RealPage has been all over the country engaging in what is probably price collusion on rents. And it's led to one of the reasons why rents have skyrocketed. I mean, Columbus and Cincinnati from 2021 to 2025 had 2 of the fastest growing rent increases in the country.
Yeah.
Now, I love Columbus and Cincinnati, but they are not the 2 hottest cities in America.
No,
and so
Cleveland's right behind there because rents have jumped up dramatically just over the last few years.
So we've got a bipartisan bill trying to address that. We've got work trying to address a bipartisan bill that passed the House, and we're now trying to get through the Senate from Representative Rachel Baker down in Cincinnati, extending clinics for kids who need long-term care so they don't have to be in children's hospitals, but they can have extra facilities just for them. PPEC is sort of the name if people want to look into it. It would do so much good for these families who desperately need more support. But we need to diversify our energy generation. There's been attempts to get community solar projects for the last 6 years in Ohio, and they've been totally dead-ended.
Well, on the federal level, they keep knocking everything down.
Totally. And Ohio has not been friendly to solar and wind in a way that has to our detriment. It's a part of the reason why utility costs are so high. But I'll give so much credit to the local representatives, Glassburn and Rader. They did a lot of work to get a bunch of bipartisan energy bills through, including finally through the House, we called it community energy bill that they worked on with Republicans to get done. And so I think there's more work to do on housing. There's more work to do on energy, an issue that I am very passionate about. And now, representatives like Representative Timms and Representative Mohammed on the Judiciary Committee are leading on are some of the criminal justice reform bills, right? We should end the practice of fining families for juvenile detention facilities. So there are juvenile detention facilities. Juvenile detention is where you go before you're convicted. Right? So these are
Right.
children who have not been convicted of anything. It's kid jail. And at kid jail all over the state, there's very few regulations. There's very few standards. And we're charging them for phone calls to their mom. Sometimes the families get charged to stay overnight.
Jeez.
Right? They're charged for food sometimes.
God.
And in Texas, they have ended the practice of juvenile fines and fees because it loses the state money. So if you're a libertarian, if you're whatever your entry point to this issue is,
Doesn't make any sense.
we should end juvenile fines and fees. And I think we'll be
And
able
isn't
to.
one of the things that they're trying to do is recriminalize marijuana, talking about the marijuana stuff?
Not trying. They did. There are elements of the bill that passed and was signed into law that recriminalize pieces of using adult use cannabis.
Even though we know across the board that is more harmful to society than anything else.
And very costly if you're just looking at it from an economic perspective.
Yeah.
To prosecute or to jail or imprison people because of marijuana, nonviolent, low-level marijuana possession is incredibly burdensome.
Yeah.
Right.
And
do
it
you have any friends who've driven, you don't have to name their names, but who drive to Michigan because it's cheaper to buy
Oh,
marijuana
yeah, lots of them. The guy in the studio just raised his hand.
because of because of the bill that they just passed recriminalizing certain elements of this. If you drive to Michigan and you bring it back to Ohio, not only is that now a misdemeanor, but if you share it with a friend, that is a drug trafficking felony offense.
I have a lot of friends who've been drug traffickers then, especially when it's legal in both states. That makes zero sense.
Absurd. Exactly what voters said they didn't want.
Mm-hmm.
Glad they're doing it. That makes a lot of sense. You called Casey punchy a minute ago. Even before I met him, I followed him on social media, and Casey's social media presence is one of my favorite things to watch. You're not Newsom. He doesn't go out there and try to emulate Trump, but he's candid, he's funny, and he doesn't mind being a smartass. But at the end of the day, you can tell this guy cares. So I pulled up some of the things that you posted on social media. And,
Here we go.
so one of the first ones that I ever saw was the Liberty Valley Church had done protests outside your home, and there was a lot of problems with it. And there was a story where you were questioning if one of your Republican colleagues was in on the whole thing. And this was when Josh Mandel was still trying to stay relevant. And he posted, "Proud to call Pastor Jeff Turing a friend and a patriot. The men and women of Liberty Valley Church and patriots who care deeply about the freedom, liberty, and Judeo-Christian bedrock of America have never heard of this Weinstein guy, but he sounds like a weakling and a crybaby." Now, what was great was this was one of the few posts where the trolls didn't come after Casey because the hate for Josh Mandel was so great that they just went to town on him. Now, there was one person I found in the thread. Now, obviously you can't see all replies and all comments. Things get removed, things get blocked, flagged. Somebody said, "Casey Weinstein, Wine, W-H-I-N-E, is a plant. Start researching Mikey Weinstein. Educate yourselves." Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to read a couple where somebody posted something, and I want to see if you can remember or if you can get into your Casey mode of what would you respond with to this. Okay, so
This is a funny game.
This is.
Yeah.
This is. Posted a lot of shit out
So
there.
one guy posted, Senator Casey, I'm sorry.
This is like mean tweets. This is like.
This is like mean tweets. Senator Casey Weinstein, define woman. What do you think that your response to this was?
I would ask why he needs me to do that. Like, are you unable to do that for yourself?
Boom, nailed it. Give him a point.
Oh,
Casey's response was, why do these dudes keep asking me to do this for them? Are they unable to figure it out for themselves?
Yeah.
I have an answer for you. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Not that long ago, I think this week, you posted a town hall event. That was all the post was.
Yeah.
Even if you hate Casey Weinstein, he's inviting you to come talk to him.
Yeah.
There was this screenshot that they love to share on your post where you said, I would run through a brick wall for Tim Walz.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they find this hilarious, but somebody posted and said, I'm old enough to remember this big announcement of yours. That was the reply to the town hall.
Mm-hmm.
What was your response to that?
Do you think this is an own? Do you think this is like a gotcha? Something like that.
Um,
Oh, are you liking your own comments?
Your response was, LOL, I'm that deep in your head.
Oh,
aren't
yeah.
I, buddy?
Okay. Because this guy,
He's one of them.
yeah.
There's like 3 or 4
there's
of them.
3 or 4,
Yeah.
and they have been on me for years, and they have screenshots of me and my wife and my kids
And your
going back
kids.
years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I mean, and how is this campaign going for them? You know, I've been reelected 3 times to the House. I'm in the Senate. My wife was the top vote getter, and Hudson is now a city councilwoman. So I'd like for them to just take a moment and assess, like, how is this obsession?
really look at the data.
Yeah, like, how is it working out for you?
All
You know,
I'll say is the rent might be too damn high in Ohio, but you are living rent-free in these people's brains. In the words of Taylor Swift, it's actually romantic how much they think
and
about
I do
you.
respond with that sometimes too. So this is actually romantic.
You were in a packed room of community leaders cutting the ribbon at the Summit County Ignite. And you're talking about empowering and transforming the lives of the incarcerated by empowering them with education, life skills, and hope. And you said it's working across the country and it's going to make a huge difference right here in the 28th district. Somebody responded with, how many deaths do you have in Summit County so far this year? 4. That sheriff is a joke. But you get things like that when nobody runs against you, right, Senator Casey Weinstein? You know about jokes, don't you? Well, if you don't look around the room while you're in there, this guy doesn't understand jokes. It was an incomplete sentence.
Mm-hmm.
What was your response to him?
I said, yes, we at this point realize this guy is an incessant poster on my page. We all know that you think we're all a joke. And I hope one day to be as like successful as you are.
Boom.
Yeah.
2 out of 3.
Kenneth Dipple.
Said-
Shout out to Kenneth Dipple.
We're all
Portage
aware
County. Doesn't even live in my district.
we're all aware that you think everyone is a joke. One day, I really hope to crush it at life like you do. To just add to the story of this troll, his final post on that same comment thread
Yeah, it was a lot.
is so typical. It was, God put his hands upon it and said it was good. Genesis, creation of the world. We're talking drugs, not God's creation. I love when people work God into it, and especially all the anti-Semitism and stuff that you've encountered. Yeah, you're going to get a lot of Valentine's chocolates and cards this year. I think you have some admirers, man. These people love you.
They're committed, that's for sure.
You posted a screenshot message from one of the trolls who harasses you and your wife and your kids, and where you said, you know, come after me all you want, leave my family out of it. Somebody posted, if you don't want someone trolling your children, you should be more responsible and not post their pictures on social media. Be a better father and protect your children. Somebody
That one
said,
pisses me off.
said,
The other one's
stop
kind of
posting
funny.
your kids for likes. Why is it so important for you to share personal family events?
God forbid you have elected officials who are also human beings.
Yeah.
Do you remember what your response was to them?
I generally say, why don't you let me parent my children and you parent yours?
You actually didn't respond to this one,
Oh.
which I was bummed about.
Oh.
So now I'm giving you a chance. What would you like to say to this individual?
I would say exactly that. Like my wife and I take our kids' security and safety very seriously. Occasionally I share family photos to my public page, like many elected officials do on both sides of the aisle, which I think is great. And it helps people see that we're not just these caricatures or that we're humans with lives. But that's what I would say is like, you do you, I'll parent my children, you parent your children. And as long as we're, like adhering to the law, I think that's okay. Right.
Yeah. Meanwhile, these are the people who are like stalking you and your family, which is insane.
3 wonderful kids, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, so Dani, you also don't get out of this scot-free. So on your Instagram,
I feel like I never respond to people.
On your Instagram, you posted a video
a lot smarter than me.
about Ohio's constitutional rights and the fear immigrants have with ICE and illegal arrest, deportation. Mostly, the people who commented said supportive things. It's kind of a non-controversial thing. But then somebody said, "Thank you, Trump and ICE, for enforcing immigration laws enacted by Congress."
Did I respond? I don't think I responded.
You don't respond to anybody.
No, I don't respond.
Here's your Casey moment. What's your response to this person?
What's your response now?
Oh, I see. They
No,
said,
but I did want to
said-
see if you thought you responded.
No, I never do. They said, "Thank you to Trump." That was the comment.
They said, "Thank you, Trump and ICE, for enforcing immigration laws enacted by Congress."
We should enforce all the laws, right, including immigration laws, no doubt. That is not what's happening, right? Like the law can be that it's illegal to cross the street, when there's no crosswalk. So, if it's not the best law to enforce, but if the cops want to enforce the law, fine, great, that's the law. But what you don't want is a cop going up and punching someone in the face for crossing the street when it's not a crosswalk. And so what we can't tolerate in a country of laws with a constitution is law enforcement thinking that the law does not apply to them and that people don't have fundamental basic freedoms and rights. And so, no, you can't shoot people without there then being an investigation and being prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law if you're found to be guilty of a crime, right? Like law enforcement can't run rampant. And that's what we're seeing. That's what's so scary. People in masks. Most Americans want immigration laws enforced. I'm one of them. But we don't want people in masks in unmarked vans taking people off the street because they think maybe their skin makes them someone who is a target.
That's operating like a cartel.
Sure.
The people who were like trying to fight, Venezuela, were trying to get rid of the
And
cartels.
it's not what most Americans are comfortable with at all. We don't want choppers landing on residential buildings in the center of Chicago and SWAT teams going in to, separate families.
And not to mention a lot of the people who have been arrested and even some deported were not actually illegal. They were citizens. I'm sure you guys have constituents who, especially in your district, who are really concerned about this. I have to assume that's why you posted the video.
Certainly in the district I represent, which has a large population of people from Central America and just I represent downtown Cincinnati and the west side of the city. So it's a very diverse part of the city. So yes, Cincinnati had a situation that got national attention with the Muslim chaplain from Cincinnati Children's who was beloved in the community, who was an asylum seeker from Egypt, who was detained by ICE for, I think, over 2 months, despite the fact that he was in the United States seeking asylum, had been, I think, granted asylum. It was clear he was a beloved chaplain at the Children's Hospital.
What a bastard.
What a threat, what a threat to society. And so, yeah, it's been a huge issue, not just in my district, but all over the state.
Yeah.
And so,
sure.
As you can see, this is why I don't respond to people's comments because, I'm not, maybe it's not.
You write into your journal and send them a 7-page letter.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen, whereas Casey's just like, I'm going to say F you without saying F you. But here's what I love, actually. The impressive part for, I think, both of you is how thick your skin is and your level of restraint, because I don't know that I have it in me to be that diplomatic all the time. Casey, this has absolutely happened with you, where one of your trolls and the person who's constantly showing up at things and fighting with you and doing all this stuff, you still go out of your way to help that person. Didn't one guy make a deal with you like, well, you helped me out, so I won't post on your page for a month or something like that?
Yeah. Happens frequently. And I think this is something that it's important to talk about because we currently have a president who only governs for his voters and for people who voted and support him.
And continue to support him. That's
right.
The other caveat.
Right. Even his own party, if they vote against him today, he was calling them out. So that's who he's governing for. What you should be as a public servant, and I know what Dani is and what many of my colleagues in the legislature are, Republican and Democrat, are they're there for all of their constituents. They're there, not just voters, constituents. I love when I get to interact with young people and I get to ask them, who's my boss? Do you know who my boss is? And I tell them it's you, and their eyes just get so big. I'm like, you are my bosses. My job is to make things better for you. And no, I don't care if who you are. If you need help,
Yeah.
I'm
That
gonna
has
help.
been missing, especially at the federal level for so long, for the last couple decades in our politics, and it's beautiful to watch it happen. Like, that is the truth. Whether or not they voted you in, you represent everybody there.
I mean, it's one of the things that's been such a loss with Sherrod Brown not being our senator anymore, because Sherrod is famous for his constituent services. I mean, anyone in the state could call and their office took care of it. And we have had now 3 senators in a row, from Vance to Husted and Moreno, who's just forget their politics on the ideological policies,
It's hard to.
but their offices are not leading. They're not doing the fundamental job of being the senator for their constituents when they have issues with the federal government nearly as well as Sherrod was able to do it. And so it's been a huge loss for people, Republican or Democrat, to not have a senator who can deliver good constituent services.
Yeah.
And that's not a glamorous or headline grabbing or sexy thing to do the constituent service work, the in and outs of helping people navigate bureaucracy or helping people get to the services they need to, or when they're in a crisis or stuck somewhere and helping. But that is such a huge part of the job. And as a state legislator, I often get requests that need federal intervention.
Sure.
And you need a good partner on that side to be able to do that.
So the last time Democrats had a majority in the Ohio House was about 15 years ago. And then the Senate, it was like 30 years ago. We can't hope that is going to change overnight. But what can we be hopeful for this year as far as trying to right the ship?
This is the best shot we've had in over a decade to break the supermajority in the House. And Dr. Amy Acton running for governor, right? If she is able to win, which I think she's got a real chance at winning.
She's picking up steam.
Look, turns out people want a governor who has spent her whole life giving a shit about other people.
And has actually
not a
lived in
governor
their
who spent-
shoes.
Yeah, and
and
not someone who has spent his whole career making billions by scamming people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, right, like, big surprise that she's doing well. That's what voters want. And so if she becomes governor and we haven't broken the supermajority, well, and we've seen this in other states, it happened to Roy Cooper in North Carolina, it limits her ability to be impactful in helping people in the state from that role.
Yeah.
And so my job as minority leader is to do everything I can to pick up seats where we can to win in competitive districts so that we can get to a situation where Democrats have at least 40 of the 99 seats. Now, look, this is not a 34 to 65 state, not even close, right? It's not even let's say we break the supermajority and we get to 40 seats. It's not a 40 to 59 state, right? It's maybe the state leans slightly Republican. It does,
it does.
But not by 20 points. And so that is just a function of
We
cheating
went
and
Obama,
gerrymandering.
we went Trump. I mean, we're mixed. We're a mixed bag.
And and it's trended that way. And so the state leans Republican, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And a balanced and fair and representative state government would also lean Republican. But right now we have 34 Democrats and 65 Republicans.
What's the ratio on the Senate?
24 to 9. Yeah.
And so I'm bullish on 2026. We've got an awesome slate of candidates. The map is actually favorable for us this year. And we're really focused on recruiting candidates and running candidates that are of their district. They're people who've been public servants for a long time, who've built up trust, who understand what their constituents need. They're not running on a national platform. They're not doing, whatever it is Gavin Newsom's tweeting about or, what's happening elsewhere. They're focused on their district, what people in their communities need. And when you're running against a party that is so out of touch because they've been in single party rule for so long, there's actually a real lane there for just common sense problem solving. So I'm pretty bullish on our chances in 26.
Man, like I said, I want to take that hope home, bake it into a pie or something, and just keep feasting on it because I love it. I'd like to end these episodes this season with a random question that's like slightly off topic, but in the realm. So I'm going to end with this. What non-political celebrity would you vote for in a presidential election?
That's a really good question. I like George Clooney. I'm a big Clooney fan, but he's pretty political. He's a pretty political celebrity.
Yeah, that's actually a possible thing that could happen at some point.
And I'm going to say it. Taylor Swift. because of the generosity of this league. Yes, I live with I have an 11-year-old daughter and
You're
an
a house
8-year-old
full of
daughter.
Swifties.
And my wife. We all love Taylor Swift. I've just seen story after story of of her generosity and how she treats other people with kindness. And what you said earlier was just getting back to fundamental kindness and respect. I think that
and how many young people she got to register to vote.
Right. And the fact that she uses one of the biggest platforms on earth
For good.
to do that, while that makes you a target doing that. I think that's a great thing. So Clooney, Swift,
and her boy is a Cleveland boy, so you gotta love that.
Yeah, right. And he's I think a great role model too. So he'd be a good first gentleman.
I agree.
Right. My daughter thinks I have clout and is consistently trying to see if I can get invited to the wedding.
You know what? If there's anybody,
just trying.
If there's anybody around here who can do it, I think it's you.
I really appreciate that. I've really tried to manage those expectations for her. But supposedly they bought a place up in.
That was a rumor.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, don't tell my daughter.
I won't.
All right. Okay.
I would never break that news to her.
Anyways, that's my answer. I'd say.
That's actually a beautiful, wonderful answer.
Thank you.
I was pretty excited when a couple years ago people were floating the idea of The Rock
Yeah.
running for president. I could see that. I mean, he's big, but gentle.
And he stands up for issues that matter. He's as pompous and bombastic as Trump, maybe in some ways. Like if you've seen him in some like candid interviews, he's got a humongous ego.
Oh, I'm thinking Moana.
You're thinking the character he played in the Disney movie.
How low the bar is. Like we're just needing some basic empathy.
That year,
capable of it.
The ticket was going to be Tom Hanks and The Rock.
I mean,
do you
also
remember
love
that?
Tom Hanks.
What a ticket!
Yeah.
What a ticket, guys!
Hey,
thank you so much for not just being here, because those of you who don't know, Casey Weinstein might be the busiest man I've ever met in my life. He and his wife both. Who, congratulations again to Amanda. She jumped into the public service arena as well. Honestly, I didn't think I'd leave this more as hopeful as I am. And that's not what I look for. I really look for digging in and learning. But I'm so glad that you shined a light on some things that most of your constituents don't get to see up close until we're in crisis mode, right? Where we need to lean on the government. So thank you for being here, but also thank you for being you and doing what you do and giving a shit and not becoming those jaded, cynical guys we need to get out of those seats.
Tell us if that happens to us.
Is there anything else before we go that you want to share?
I do get a lot of questions from folks. What can I do? What can I do? We're in an election year. Make sure you're registered. Find an issue, find an organization, find a candidate who speaks to you or that speaks to you, and get involved. Right? We have a real opportunity to do that.
And don't assume your friends are registered, because they're not.
Yeah,
I guarantee you they're not.
Yeah.
Right? The check, and it's really easy to check. You just need their full name and what county they live in.
Well, even though you guys aren't currently running for re-election, is there a page or a site? Oh, you are running. I'm sorry. I thought you were already into it.
They got to go every 2 years down there.
Oh, that's
down
right.
there in the House.
The little people.
He's going to get reelected. I'm pretty confident of that.
Where can folks go to support the cause?
Oh, wow. Well, so in my role as leader now, if people, and I believe this is one of the most important things for the future of the state, we have to pick up seats as a Democratic caucus in the House. We have to break the supermajority. So they can go to the Ohio House Democratic Caucus's website and support. That is the vehicle that we will use to flip these districts and sort of change the dynamic of the legislature.
Where can they go to support you directly?
VoteDani.com, VoteDani.com.
CaseyForOhio.com. It's quick, secure, and easy to contribute.
Man, that guy, he's got it nailed down. Thank you, guys. You're both good sports. I love how you're like bosom buddies. This worked out really well. Keep doing what you're doing. And at the end of the day, this isn't really about red or blue. It shouldn't be.
Sure.
I wish we could take away those titles and just be like, we're all people running on the issues that the folks around us care about. And as long as you keep banging that drum, I don't care what color is on your flag, like you have my support, and you're going to have the millions of people who live across this state supporting it. So let's make some positive change. Go out there and vote, use your voice, find out, educate yourself about the issues, and see what's really impacting you and who's doing what to fix it. We need people in those seats who are servants to the people. Like you said, Our officials answer to us, not the other way around, and that's what we need to get back to. And thank God we found 2 of them who actually do it. So go out there, use your voice, do the things that we bang our drums and pound our chests about freedom and liberty, and be part of the democratic process that's so near and dear to our hearts. And we will see you guys next time.
We just went there. Now you can go to thegoingtherepodcast.com for links to all the podcast platforms, our socials, and of course, YouTube. While you're at it, give us a rating, share with a friend, and subscribe.
This podcast is brought to you in part by its host and Frame One Media, in association with Kaylee Williams, Joe Calley, and Bobby Thomas.